من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور. سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور، يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور. صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور، يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور. صابرا في العلم صبرا حتى سموه الصبور، يخرج العلم بفأل مثل ريحان الزهور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك الصقور. كن إذا سموك اسما لتكن مثل الحضور، كن رفيقا كن عظيما كن كما تلك الصقور. راقيا بالعلم نحو النجم مزدان شكور، رافضا كل التدني رافضا نفس الغرور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. ابن مسعود فقيه عالم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور. ابن مسعود فقيه عالم أحيا القفور، فإذا أعطاك رأيا كان سهما في النحور. وعلي ثم بالدين معاذ لا يبور، اقرأوا التاريخ تروي عنه أفواه سطور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور. إن سألت عن إمام أو فقيه في الأمور، ابن عباس ترنم وسيبقى في الصدور. فهو كالشمعة تذهب حتى تأتينا بنور، ساهر بالليل علم وبأوقات سحور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور، به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور. إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي والعصور. إذ بكى النبي يوما سمعا صوتا جهور، يا أبي كم روت عنك الليالي.
سيدنا Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure all of you are following what is taking place in Pakistan, and as the desperate situation of the Muslims there. Over 70% of the country is underwater. Over 30 million people are completely displaced. 500,000 people are in camps, seems like new camps. Another something seems to be a story of the Muslim Ummah. Mukhayyamat have become a common theme no matter where you go, whether it's Somalia, whether it's Syria, whether it's Pakistan, Afghanistan. And there is now a huge situation with health risks, with waterborne diseases. Of course, these waters don't just carry diseases, but they also carry insects and animals. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing scenes where there's snakes floating on the water while human beings are also walking through water. In some places, water was above 6-7 feet. I was looking at some of the information being sent to us with our brothers who are on the ground also. So the situation is very desperate. Pakistan was already in an economic crisis and also a political crisis. And now with this situation, what does the future look like of Pakistan? And more importantly, why, with what's happening with the floods, is this a human disaster, man-made disaster, or was it a natural disaster? And if it was natural, why was nothing really done to actually take care of the situation? Where is the infrastructure? Where are the politicians? Where are the rulers? Where are these people? So it seems, to answer all of those questions, we'll have Brother Adnan Khan, and many of you know he's an analyst. He writes for Geopolity. Actually, they are the ones who are running it. He's an author. He has written many books. I read his strategic the magazine that they come up with almost on a yearly basis. It's an amazing magazine that just it's so professionally done. Akhi, subhanallah. Brother Adnan Khan, welcome to Islamic Oasis. And we will also have Brother Yasheb Rajpur. I know a lot of brothers and sisters were waiting to see what he has to say. He is in Sindh, central Sindh, but due to some internet connection, we are doing a separate interview with him, and then we will connect it back to this show, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. So Brother Adnan Khan, first of all, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It's good to be here.
Wallah, jazakallah khair. It's actually an honor to have you here. I've always just read your stuff for at least last 5 years. I've been reading your stuff, but longer. But to actually have you here and to have a conversation, it's an honor, subhanallah. And it's actually an honor to see that we have personalities like you who can write at such level. Almost looks like a government produced. If there was a government, if there was an Islamic Khilafah, this would be the type of production we would like to see, where a strategic assessment of where Islam or Islamic State would be going, or where the other nations are, and what would be our responsibility to what's happening in the world. So Sheikh, starting with Pakistan here, where is this thing going to go? I mean, when you're looking at the country is in a complete chaos. We have relief teams also on the ground. We are working with 3-4 different relief teams in different parts of the country. Everybody's telling us stories you can't even imagine. I mean, is Pakistan going to become complete lawless banana republic?
So you're absolutely right. It's desperate. I'm still reading stories, individual stories of fathers, of mothers, of brothers and sisters who've lost their wealth, their homes, their children. So many individual stories which are shocking. I think the unfortunate thing is this is not the first time we're talking about a disaster in Pakistan. This is not the first time we're talking about floodings in Pakistan. It seems like a regular occurrence. Whilst the amount of rain and the amount of damage is quite unprecedented, Pakistan is not a place where you don't have floods. Last year, I think 2015, 2010, just preparing for this show, I've come across so many reports just talking about the 2010 floods. And even the recommendations from them haven't seen the light of day today. But as bad as things are, I take comfort in the way the people of Pakistan have moved, how they've mobilized. As far as they're concerned, the state doesn't exist. Their community, the people, Muslims from across the world, they're going to come to their aid. They're going to help them. So I'm sitting in London and everyone's mobilizing here. It's like literally there's no point in waiting for the state. We are going to help our brothers and sisters. And what's even more heartening is this isn't even the first time. This has happened from the Ummah across the world when the earthquakes have happened in Pakistan, when the previous floods have happened as well. So despite the challenges the Ummah faces due to the floods and natural disasters, what you find is people come to each other's aid. They mobilize their wealth. So from that perspective, there is always going to be a future for these people. The Ummah generally is resilient. And unfortunately, although the scale of what we're seeing currently is very big, unfortunately, disasters such as these floods, they seem to be a regular occurrence. And I think whilst the amount of rainfall is beyond our control, the devastation it causes is within our control. There are things we can do about this. I was literally just reading last week when Pakistan declared a state of emergency, China is sending rockets and drones into the sky, and they're doing cloud seeding to modify the clouds and weather. So this is a country that's in the same region as Pakistan. Not a few decades ago, China was even poorer than Pakistan. This is a country that's engaged in weather modification. And in the case of Pakistan, when we know there'll be a monsoon season every year, we know the rains are going to come every year, we know they're going to cause a level of devastation. I mean, really, we should be talking today about the preparations Pakistan has done. And unfortunately, the torrential downpour was too much and those defenses didn't work. But unfortunately, what we're talking about here is none of those defenses have been put in place. None of the recommendations from previous floods have ever seen the light of day. So unfortunately, the outcome you see is the loss of life, the loss of wealth. I mean, the devastation is bad. It's going to have a long-term impact. Pakistan, 40% of Pakistan works in agriculture. You know, flooding is going to have a massive impact on agriculture, on farming. It's going to have a major impact going forward. Pakistan's main export is textiles and agriculture. It's going to have a massive knock-on effect on that. I was just reading this morning, the previous regime, the Imran Khan regime, they borrowed about $36 billion in external borrowing. Where is that money? Where's that money gone? Where's the infrastructure?
Yeah, this is...
You know, we've been borrowing, Pakistan borrowed a lot of money from the IMF and the World Bank. I mean, that's a debate in itself. But where is that money? Where is it in infrastructure? Where is it in education? Where is it for the people? Because half of Pakistan's budget is going on debt repayment. So what benefit are the people actually seeing from the original money that's being borrowed?
So Sheikh, I mean, this is what I'm saying though. I mean, like, look, I know you're saying that, look, we have seen this before. But this situation, this crisis is on the top of other crises that are already facing Pakistan. So you're looking at the situation where you have an economic disaster. Currency is at levels we can't even imagine. You have now, a political crisis taking place where when half of the country is dying underwater and others, these politicians are fighting for their chairs. So Sheikh, I mean, I guess, when you look at, you said that, look, the people are coming together, the Muslims, the Ummah is saying that, look, we know no one's coming for us. But is this crisis different though, in a sense that it comes on the back of an already failed state?
So unfortunately, already you're seeing the state mobilizing, giving their perspective. So you're right. When you've had a natural disaster and you've had government failure, the natural discussion would be, what's gone wrong? We need regime change, we need system change. But you're seeing already there's a few common arguments being thrown around by officials. So you're seeing the argument is climate change, it's not the government. You're seeing, we're bad, so we're being punished.
Yeah.
And I've even heard today, you get the rulers you deserve. Yeah. So all of these arguments deflect. I live in Europe, and shockingly, last year there were massive floods in Germany.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah.
Nobody said, we are bad people, this is the wrath of God.
Yeah.
They all turned against Angela Merkel, the ruler, and she was humiliated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, what you find in our country, the rulers throw in arguments which deflect from the real issue. Now, I accept the level of rain was unprecedented. However, the fact that we're still talking about the 2015 floods and 2010, and the fact that the proposals from those floods and the research haven't been implemented shows you there is a fundamental problem here.
And the thing was, I was watching this. There was a clip that it seems like the minister of, like this agriculture and then weather and all of these things. There, I don't know, maybe you saw it too, where he was actually for about good 50 minutes. It was a whole presentation given to Imran Khan at the time that this is where we are at and this is what could happen. If the rain comes. But Sheikh, I mean. Does this go on deaf ears? I guess why is it that we respond the way we do, as far as, let's say, even the population as Muslims? The
reason why we
either blame Allah Azza wa Jal, or and because we say, oh, this is punishment from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. What can we do now? Khalas, qadar Allah ma sha fa'al. No one is arguing this is not the qadr of Allah. But why is it that we don't have any idea of taking people who are supposed to be taken accountable?
So, I mean, what you're effectively saying is the system we have in Pakistan and much of the Muslim world, it's not really in line with the sentiments of the people. Keep in mind, 75% of Pakistan lives on less than $5 a day. Vast majority of Pakistanis are in poverty. They are trying to make ends meet. They're trying to feed their families. They live on a daily wage. In that scenario, they haven't got time to be thinking about national politics and these sort of things. This is why in much of our countries like Pakistan, you find a very tiny elite. They dominate the politics, whilst the vast majority of people are trying to make ends meet. And what they tend to do is they accept whatever happened, but they've got more important things. They've got extended families to feed. I mean, I was reading stories of fathers who had saved half of their lives to get their daughters married, and all their wealth, everything's gone, all gone completely overnight. So the sentiments of our people are in the right place. Unfortunately, the representatives of the people, their sentiments are completely somewhere else. I even found today, there are still court cases going on in the UK for the collection of money for the previous floods and how the funds were embezzled by the Sharif family from the UK to Pakistan. Those cases are still ongoing.
Wow.
So these are sort of rulers we have. For them, for Western politicians, every crisis is an opportunity. And our rulers look at it the same way. They don't see the crisis as a crisis. They see it as, how can we get public opinion for ourselves? How can we come across we care about the people? Or they're looking at it as an opportunity to make money from it. Now, in this particular case, there's been proposals after all the floods historically from international institutes, Oxfam, on the policies Pakistan needs to put in place. So on this occasion, they can't blame anything else. Really, it comes down to, you've got rulers and it's their job to take care of the people's affairs. And if they're not, they need to be replaced. What the people of Pakistan need to see, and like much of the Muslim world, is we've got the resources, we can be independent. In fact, most of our problems are actually man-made. Corruption, lack of development. So if these rulers are not in line with our sentiments, they need to be removed. We should discard them into the dustbin of history.
Brother Yasheb, can you hear us? After an hour of killing us?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. I've been hearing you since 50 minutes.
Oh, okay.
50 minutes.
Why didn't you say something, man? You're sitting in that car of yours. Where'd you go?
I'm sitting beneath the telephone tower.
You gotta keep that out. That better be out the show. So this is the situation of Pakistan. I guess you have to be under the tower in order to get anything across to the world. Brother, right. I'm sure you were hearing the discussion going on. I mean, you are in Sindh, and you guys, what's the situation there? As far as I've been watching your videos for the last week. Most of the time you are walking through 6 foot of water. Yeah,
actually, like swimming over the water. Well, I'm not a social media kind of guy, but I had to make videos to get the message out there to show the people what's really going on here and the kind of devastation that has taken place. Uh, because people really need to know this. These things are not. I mean, we're quick to blame these on Allah Subhanahu wa Taala or to the natural causations, but the thing is, most of this is caused by human hands. 60% of the flooding that's going on in my area right now is due to mismanagement. You won't believe this, but I'm in central Sindh right now, but my area which is getting flooded is not because of the huge river Indus or the canals that come through it. It's because of a dam rain canal that could not get cleared by the local officials, and hundreds of thousands of people are getting flooded in my area because of that rain canal, which is overflowing and expanding, and it's creating kind of a spider web. So what ends up happening is that with this rain canal gets overflown due to blockage and a lot of encroachment. So the water doesn't go through and it overflows and floods the village. So what happens, this village number 1 transfers the water to village number 2. So this village number 2 transfers the water to village number 3. So it goes around and round and round in circles and then ends up going back into the same drainage canals 5 or 6 miles down the same line. So it creates kind of a spider web, and a lot of people get flooded because of that, because of not having the canal being cleared by the officials or the people who govern
how are
here.
the people, obviously we're seeing, the devastation, and I mean, subhanallah, akhi, and so tell us the reality, I mean, on the ground. What's happening? They're talking about 500,000 people are going to be living in camps. They're giving us numbers like over 1,000 dead, over some 30 million people are in complete disaster situation. I mean, where you are, I mean, are there already tents? What's going on, man?
Even if you go like 5 minutes outside my village, you can see people living in tents, people living on the roads. I wish I could show it to you, but I'm actually on one of the roads right now. If I had my back camera on or efficient lights, there are people living in tents right now in front of me, like literally 50 feet away from me, from where I am standing in my car. That's the reality right now. And these people were living in their homes and in their fields. This is an agriculture area, so they had to leave the fields because of 6 feet or 5 feet of water, and they got no option but to come back and live on the roads.
So
they were just waiting for the water.
What about children and women and elderly? I mean, bathrooms. What's the deal there? I mean, where are people going to use hammamat if they have to go? I mean, look, when I go to these camps, you kind of have to set up makeshift bathrooms quickly in these situations. You have to do everything kind of like almost like a first responders type of thing. You know that, okay, the first things the people will be needing is food, shelter, bathrooms are going. If not, that becomes a disaster by itself, because the diseases that can come from there. So do you guys have set up these things or what? I mean,
the thing is that I'm doing some kind of relief work here as well in my village and surrounding areas. We try to set up a mini camp city type of thing, but that didn't work out. The reason why that didn't work out is because of people's livestock. They cannot go far away from their village. They want to stay as close as they can to their village because they cannot leave their livestock. And if they go to some kind of a tent city or a makeshift setup, they won't be able to feed their livestock efficiently, and they won't have their facilities for their livestock. So that's the main reason they don't want to go far away from the village. They're willing to stay inside the village even right now, even with 5 or 6 feet of water, if they have sufficient supply for their livestock, or if they have even some kind of agriculture field left.
So, man, what is the situation there, man, as far as food? I mean, is aid coming? Are there aid organizations on the ground? I know north and south, we were talking yesterday, you said the south is completely cut off. Aid can't even get there, I guess, in many of these places because of the amount of water in the middle. Are you seeing any government services there? Who are you seeing? Who's helping, Akhi?
So what happens is that few days ago there were like few hundred people got stuck with this overflowing of drainage canal, and Pakistan Army came to rescue people there. That was an emergency situation. So they rescued people for the whole day and got everyone out safely. But after that, so we haven't seen any aid basically from government or as well as from the army so far. There were 2 trucks that came in after 12 days of rain and after 12 to 13 days of disaster. But that's basically nothing.
No, I understand.
I mean,
So
people.
no, I've heard that when there were trucks. I mean, we were talking to, for instance, to one of our teams, and they literally, people were saying that they can't take these trucks out there even without rangers, because I mean, they're even looters on the way. There's a lot of thugs out there. There's a lot of people with guns who are basically kind of taking over 8 trucks and things like this. Are you seeing that? I mean, is this have you heard about this, or are you seeing it, or?
Yes, true and not true, because the people who are taking away the stuff, they are not looters. They are local people who know each other, and they are in a desperate situation. Just few days ago, I was going to a nearby city to pick up some medical supplies that came in from the big city, Karachi. So there was a blockage on the road, and these people knew me. They knew my father. So I told them, I want to get through. If you can please let me get through, then I'll go and take some supplies and come back. They said, okay, we know your father, so we are like brothers or from the same tribesmen. But when they heard one of the people there heard me, I'm going to take some supplies. He said, give us supplies first, and then we'll let you get through. And that's after knowing me and my father, who I am, and I'm a local. So the only way I could get away from them was to tell them, okay, when I come back, I'm gonna give it to you first, then go back to my area. So this is a kind of situation people are in.
Sheikh, you are. What role do you play? It seems like you have some type of a status amongst the people there. So they knew your dad. I mean, what kind of a role are you playing? What kind of? I mean, you guys, do you belong to a political family? What is it that? I mean, obviously you're moving around, and you're able to. So what allows you to do this, and others probably can't do what you're doing?
Well, basically, apart from the political background, my family political background, my father is a chieftain of his tribe, and we are one of the largest tribes in Sindh, Rajpur tribe. So my father is the chief. So just because of that, you get to go to places that a lot of people cannot get access to. And most of the people in my area are from my tribe, and the other people who are not from my tribe, they know my family, so that's the reason I'm able to access a lot of these
Sheikh,
places.
me and brother Adnan here have been going on for about an hour or so. Brother Adnan, I hope you don't mind. I'm asking him all the questions now before I get in. Do you have any questions for him also?
It's good to know. No, so I just want to know more on the ground, because we're getting an image from abroad that the world is mobilizing to give aid. So it's actually good to hear what's going on the ground. Just details we wouldn't know, because the international coverage is quite high level, and it's good to find out what's going on the ground.
Yeah, because they're saying even countries are bringing in aid to Pakistan. Today, I heard Qatar.
Where's Yasheb, where's the government? What's the government doing?
They put them under the sun.
Well,
They had to put them. That's what they're doing.
well, just 2 days ago, I went to the big city, which is Nowshera Feroz here, and I met some of the government officials here. They were health officials and as well as people from the police. So what I saw over there, that I just ended up wasting 4 hours of my precious time. I could have done more in that time than being with them. I mean, I was sitting in an AC room with them for 40 minutes and they were chatting with me as if nothing is happening. And I was like, I got up, and you guys have no humanity left in you. And you have so much time that you're willing to spend it on me and not help people over there, the people who are even in the city, let alone I went to get aid for my city, to the district headquarters. But let alone my city, they were not even helping the district headquarters. And they were like basically acting helpless, that we don't have anything, our hands are tied up, and stuff is getting stolen from our police offices. So these are the things you get to hear.
So, man, when you say that though, I mean, so how about the people, akhi, on the ground, the people, what do you think, what will be the aftermath of this flood? Yes, me and Brother Adnan were talking that this is not the first time flooding has taken place in Pakistan, or the disasters, earthquakes, things like this. But do you see anything different this time in the way the government has responded, and what might the aftermath be?
Well, the first part of your question, what's going to be the aftermath, is that it's going to be a long run. When I came in from Karachi and I reached my village, it was third day of rains, and the rain lasted for 12 to 13 days. And I thought I'm going to be here for 15-20 days and I can go back visit my mom in Karachi and spend a few days over there. But now I've realized that I'm going to be here for a very long time. I'm looking at least 2 to 3 months until. So the first phase is for the waters to subside. We are still getting flooded. Don't forget, we are still getting flooded. And there's still a lot of risk from the rivers and the canals that are flowing, basically from River Indus. We are still at a critical point where you could see the whole area. We are talking a radius of like 500 to 600 kilometers being under water for 5 or 6 feet. That's still a possibility, God forbid, but that's still a very high possibility if things are not managed efficiently in coming days. When the water level subsides.
Go ahead, brother.
Just a quick question. Is most of the problem coming from the rivers, or is most of it just the intense rain coming from the sky? Or is it a combination of both?
So the thing is, 25% of the destruction that has happened there is from the rains, but 80% of the destruction that has happened is from the flooding, and the flooding is caused by mismanagement of rain canals that are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that take the waters downstream from upstream. There are natural pathways. So people have encroached, people have built homes on there, government has failed to clear those waterways. So those waters have flooded the area basically and affected hundreds of thousands of people. It's not the rain. Rain only destroyed 25% of the infrastructure, but flooding destroyed, that resulted from inefficiency of the government, that destroyed 80% of the things.
So, Sheikh, it seems like the government before received $36 billion. They should have a lot of money waiting just to give to the people. I mean, it seems like that's a lot of money, $36 billion. Where do you think are people questioning where this money went, or that's not even a discussion anymore. It's just survival, I guess.
Well, you see people here asking questions, but they just don't give a damn anymore. It's at a point where they just don't give a damn. What happens when election times comes? They just buy votes. That's what happens in my area. They pay people and they buy the votes. Actually, buy the votes. And I'm not afraid of being from any legal consequences for saying this, because that's the actual fact that you very often hear on the TV as well. That's what happens in my area. People buy votes. They just don't give a damn about the people anymore. You don't even see elected officials amongst the people, even in this time of tragedy.
Subhanallah, man. So what's keeping you there, bro? I mean, why aren't you just saying you're stuck there is one thing, but you know, what's the motivation, Sheikh? I mean, what do you think? What's the deal? You know, what are you saying? What's the future looks like?
Well, first of all, I'm not stuck here. I was in Karachi. I have a home in Karachi as well. So half of the time I'm living in my village, half of the time I'm living in Karachi. So no, I intentionally came here. I felt that I had a responsibility towards my people and the tribe that my father is the chief of. So the only reason for staying here is that I believe we have a responsibility as a family given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we are the chief of few people, how many people they are doesn't matter, lakhs or hundreds or thousands, whatever they are. And we are going to be asked about the responsibility from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that what did you do about the responsibilities that we gave you. So I'm my best to be in a position to answer my Rabb, that my Rabb, I tried my best, and I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts.
Sheikh, and we are seeing a lot of this. You know, usually, subhanAllah, this is something that we always see at the time of disasters. The Ummah comes together. Are you seeing, what have you seen from your own eyes, you know, the kind of sacrifices the people are giving in order to, for instance, save others? We're seeing videos that are amazing. People are jumping in water to try to get some kid out of the water. Or what are you seeing that you thought that this is amazing if this Ummah is just given the right leadership?
So the first few days, people were saying that we are a corrupt nation or things like that, that there's a lot of shortage of things and people are jumping up the prices and things like that. But what I saw closely, that people have a lot of care in them. I saw when I went to villages to help people or get aid to them, people just gave me whatever they had to use that as a resource to get the aid to those people. Like one of the villages I went to, there were 4 feet of water, and there was no way for me to get to the next village where I was getting the aid to. So these people from my tribesmen, they said, okay, you can just take my tractor and trolley, and what happens, drive the tractor in 4 or 5 feet of water. So you can see people are giving whatever they have, even if they have a tractor, even if they have a makeshift boat, even if they have a motorbike which is powerful enough to drive through the water, they're giving whatever they have. And we were not seeing that first few days, but after time went on, people realized, and I can see on the ground and from very closely that people have a lot of care in them. They are willing to give whatever they have. And it's the rulers that have let us down, basically.
Akhi, what about the hospitals? What are you seeing the situations in the hospitals? Are there any hospitals around where you are? Clinics, hospitals?
Yes, there are government hospitals. There are government hospitals.
And what are the situations inside them? I mean, give me a little bit. For instance, a lot of people will be listening to this. Give me, what should the people do? I mean, is it medicine that you need, food that you need, shelter, tents that you need? I mean, because, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people also question because of the corruption situation in Pakistan, when people are giving, you know, that aid is not reaching to the people, and it's being eaten up right through the middle. So first of all, give me of your what's happening in the hospitals. How are the doctors and nurses doing? What are you seeing when, if I don't know if you were able to visit a hospital or anything and to see.
Yes, I was able to.
Women, children. I mean, is the malaria becoming an issue? What's going on?
Well, the biggest thing people are waiting on is that water level to subside. And as far as the aid is concerned, we have a lot of medicines locally that are available from the government as well as from within the big cities that we are getting. But the thing is that there are a lot of cases of malaria, and you don't get treated for malaria at the local district government hospital. Even if they have the medicines or the ability to treat you, they just don't give a damn. They just treat few patients that they know personally, or the ones that come through the reference of someone, that somebody knows somebody and you get to see the doctor. And that's the situation right now. There are a lot of cases of malaria and they're not getting treated. And that's the biggest issue right now. Even when I was talking to you earlier, I was standing outside. I was having connection issues. I was not able to stand outside for 5 minutes because of mosquitoes. And that's the situation we are in right now.
Subhanallah, man. So you're talking.
Even if you go on the road, you could see livestock dead on the side of the road every half kilometer because of mosquitoes.
Wow. So waterborne diseases, that means typhoid probably is now very common, is going to become common. Man, how big do you think this disaster is? What is going to be what's the size of this whole situation?
Well, I was here in Pakistan when 2010 floods happened. And if I compare those to this, mind you, we're still going through the flood. It has not ended yet. So as far as the scale is concerned, we are not sure how it's going to end up. We hope for the best from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the thing is, we just don't know how it's going to end up.
Sheikh, let me ask you this regarding infrastructure. I mean, is this, I don't know, there's a lot of talk about can there be Indian role in this, I guess India has built almost 500 or so dams versus Pakistan building only 150 dams, especially with what happened with the 370 in Kashmir, where Kashmir was basically handed to India by Imran Khan regime at the time. And that's where the waters originate. That's where the rivers are coming from. So is there truth to this, that there could be water being forced to flow in directions other than India? I mean, whether it's Pakistan, whether what happened in Sylhet in Bangladesh recently. I mean, it seems like something that happens constantly in Bangladesh. India does that all the time to Bangladesh. And then why not Pakistan?
So look, this is one element, yeah. The government of Pakistan, there's an element to this which we can explore now, but what we can't do is let the rulers pin it all on India, because that's not even the reality. So firstly, Pakistan signed up to the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. So Pakistan signed up to it, where effectively, even though India and Pakistan were at war and were about to go to war a few years later, they agreed on a water treaty, because a lot of the northern areas of India and Pakistan, the water comes from the Himalayas, the rivers flow through India, through occupied Kashmir, they come to Pakistan, they're going to India. So it shows you how artificial both India and Pakistan are, because previously there was no border there and they shared the resources. So Pakistan signed this agreement. The agreement includes India can open up its dams and let an element of the water flow into Pakistan. And yes, a lot of this has been affected by the ups and downs between Pakistan and India. So I think in the last 3 or 4 months, India did inform Pakistan that we've released X amount of water from our dams. So yeah, they only informed Pakistan like a couple of days before, so there's nothing they can do. But that's one element. The fact that you've got a significant amount of rain that falls from the sky in a short period, that's got nothing to do with India. That, something you have to prepare
You
for.
have to have the
Now,
infrastructure to bear.
yeah, now, because Pakistan has, Pakistan relies on agriculture. It has a monsoon season every year. So this is something that should be a critical element of any government. What's interesting in the case of Pakistan, the central government actually doesn't take care of disaster recovery. It's actually a duty of the individual provinces, because Pakistan has been set up as a federal republic. So there is no central. When these floods came, they don't respect borders. They don't respect the provinces. So there should be a national approach to this. But what central government has done, they pushed it completely down to the provincial governments, so you're on your own. So there's no coordinated policy, and this is something numerous reports constantly point out. You need a national level strategy to actually deal with this. The infrastructure really should have been in place by now. I mean, in the last 4 years, $36 billion has been borrowed. Where's that going? There are no issues. I mean, we can argue you're borrowing the money, so you've got to pay it back. But where's the borrowed money gone? We don't see it in health. We don't see it in education. We don't see it in development. We don't see it in infrastructure. Where's that money going? Because the Pakistani public's being told we got to repay back the debt now. So that's taken up half of the budget. So fine. So the original debt that you took, where's that gone?
So Sheikh, what happens
So
now?
that's why we've got this cycle of problems.
That's what I'm trying to say, that look, I think over 60% of the budget was already going to pay the IMF anyway, every single year. That was, that's crazy. That meaning 60% of the GDP of the country was being used to pay back IMF. That's something else by itself. And then now, if this thing goes on, so what will they do? Go back to IMF and then borrow more money that this see, look, for instance, I was in Somalia recently. I went to Somalia. I was there for 10 days. Then I went to Syria. I was there 10 days. And then I just recently came back here. And the thing is that both of these countries, at least Somalia, more than even Syria, is a complete disaster. There are areas in Somalia where you can fly to, but you can't drive there because there's so much opposition on the way against the government, that these are not safe areas. And of course, now there's so-called Somaliland there, which has become independent in many ways. They operate independently. Can this disaster create that kind of situation in Pakistan, where Balochistan says that, look, we've been asking for independence anyway, and now it's not like you come to us, it's not like you came to our aid, we had to do this ourselves. Are we looking at a civil war in Pakistan? Is that possible?
So I don't think in the immediate term it's possible. In the long term, it's absolutely possible, because if the government's neglecting certain regions, this is where external powers can now start interfering. And there's always been an element of Indian interference in Balochistan. I mean, India's heavily involved in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Now, that wouldn't have been possible if Pakistan actually, treated the Afghan brothers and sisters the way they should. So these are sort of things it can lead to. And in fact, this is actually the West, how they interfere in many countries. You have a neglected minority, you have a government who oppresses people, and then they use that as a way to interfere. And then, like they did in Sudan, they separate the south of the country. This is how it works. So in the case of Pakistan, although you've got this national identity, Pakistan, really politics is quite regional and quite local. So you find the Balochi argument is, we were promised a stake in this national project called Pakistan. We've got most of the country's resources, but we're the least developed. And the only time the government's interested in Balochistan is when they want to test nuclear weapons.
Right.
So you've always had a rebel movement there, things like that. So there's been government failure here from that part. And this is why these are the sort of things, disasters when they occur, people will feel we should go on our own. Or even more importantly, I mean, there are, for example, senators in America who've actually proposed that America should support the separation of Balochistan. It wasn't American government policy, but you've got elements out there. Because not all politicians see everything the same way. So this could be a future policy. However, people believe in Pakistan. The people of Pakistan believe, Pakistan was created in the name of Islam. We had this struggle with the Hindus. We've got our own nation. As bad as it is, we should work and we should try and strengthen it. But you're right. I mean, how long can people put up with government failure, with corruption, with the lack of development? And these are the sort of circumstances that usually lead to foreign interference. I mean, if you take from the Balochi perspective, why should they not take Indian arms? Why should they not take foreign money and do a struggle against central government? But you saw this in the northern areas. You saw Taliban turn against the Pakistani government. These are the sort of things that actually happen. And the solution is so simple. The solution is don't neglect your people. Take care of your people. Have effective governance. So the problem in origin is quite simple, but because other interests get in the way, in the long run it can. And there's always been this thing about Pakistan that, will it fall apart? Is it a failed state? There's rogue elements within the army. The whole country, despite being around for 75 years, it could be turned upside down in one go. And after such a long period of time, there's still that feeling amongst American officials that this is still a very unstable country.
Sheikh, why is that? Is that because Pakistan, the political parties are up at arms all the time? What is it? I mean, one funny thing, I guess the reality I saw was in the, like inside the communities where political parties come in and they put their flags and things like this. People were just grabbing their flags and throwing them in dustbins and saying that, these people are just there. Political parties were just coming and even giving people relief and saying, but make sure that you support and your vote is coming to us. So, I mean, India is a democracy, right? Look, we understand what democracy is, and I'm not discussing whether democracy is Islamic or not. I'm just saying that at least at a level of an organization, and as a government, an organized state, how is it that India can do what it's doing and Pakistan just can't come together to even, why is this such a failure, Sheikh? I mean, it's not like the Indians are the most honest people on the face of the earth.
Yeah. So what you find, unfortunately, in the case of Pakistan, is when Pakistan was created, there was no grand plan, how they planned to develop the country. They were too busy trying to get independence. So once they got independence, you had a disaster straight away. Millions of people moved. There was no preparations. There was no plans. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, for all his struggle, there was no outline of what they planned to do, how they planned to establish a strong state. India, if you look at the Indian forefathers, if you look at Gandhi and Nehru, they had plans. They wanted to be like Soviet Union. They had their 5-year plans. So what you found was the founders of Pakistan in origin were very mediocre. And actually they were fighting a lot amongst themselves. So eventually the army took over because they were the most organized institute. And the army leadership made the decision that the quickest way to develop, considering we have an enemy across the border, India, is to side with America in the Cold War. In fact, they went so far to say to America that we're your partners in the Cold War, that even America didn't take them seriously. So really since then, what you've had is you've had the army who runs the country, and then you've had opportunist dynastic families who are really in it to make it, they're in it for themselves. They're there to loot the country. I mean, I was reading Benazir Bhutto's biography, and the author said that Benazir Bhutto said to her that when her father was removed from power, the Bhutto family experienced a lot of poverty. And it was then in the 70s and 80s, she made a decision that when I get back into power, I'm going to make sure we're never in poverty again. So what she did in the 1990s.
That's what I'm asking you. How do these parties get into power? I don't know if you know the nitty-gritties, but I mean, let's say, for instance, that you are already poor. So what happens? Somebody from outside comes and says, okay, we know that you are looking to get back into power. Here's the money. You're going to do this, this, and this, and here are our interests. And you go ahead and do it. Is this what has been happening in Pakistan?
Yes. So these dynastic family, like the Bhutto family, they are from Sindh. They're from their support base is from Sindh. So all the feudal landlords, they support this party, and the Bhutto family take care of them when they're in power. So all the workers, they are forced to vote for this party because this party is going to take care of you. So they do some things on the ground. They make roads, they'll do some sort of development, but they will make sure they loot more than what they put into the country. The Sharif family is the same thing. Their support base is in Punjab. It's amongst the feudal landlords there, some of the workers there. And maybe the biggest difference between Pakistan and the Arab world, around this structure, you've got loads of opportunists who also take advantage of the system. In the Arab world, you have one family, you have a military ruler, and that's all there is. And that's why I think Pakistan's system's been able to sustain itself, because there's a lot more people who benefit from it compared to, for example, in Egypt or Syria or Libya. So when you're poor and you've got to make ends meet, your only way to survive is, I might as well support the politician who's going to give me something. And unfortunately, you see arguments like, as bad as he or she is, at least they give us something. You know, these are sort of arguments you see. But what the people of Pakistan don't see is your country has resources. Why do American officials constantly talk about Pakistan? If it's such a poor country, such an underdeveloped country, why would they care? Because they can see it's in a strategic location. You've got the rise of Russia, the rise of China. It's a nuclear armed nation. It's a large population. This country has the ingredients to do something big. But unfortunately, the rulers keep saying we're weak, we're poor, the people are really, really bad. So Pakistan's strengths are not utilized by the rulers. In fact, the Pakistan economy is not even structured in Pakistan's strengths. So that's why you have this very dysfunctional scenario.
So what does that mean? The Pakistan economy is not, this is very interesting. You said that it's not actually structured according to its...
So if you look at the Pakistan economy, it's based primarily on services. So telecoms, entertainment, these industries. But 40% of the population work in agriculture. So you 60% of the economy, that bit of the economy, the vast majority of people don't even work in that sector, they work in agriculture. Pakistan's main export is textiles. Why are you not producing anything more? Now, okay, you could argue this takes time to change, but Pakistan's economy has been in discussion for decades. So what you find here, these are long-term plans. There is no long-term plan in Pakistan. Every plan is a 3 or 4 year plan by a ruler who comes to power. There is no long-term plan.
How did they even get to a point where to become a nuclear weapon, a state of nuclear power? I mean, is that by accident or what? How does this?
No. They became a nuclear power because their enemy across the border developed nuclear weapons. So they had to for security purposes. If India was look at it like this. India, Pakistan had a very horrible divorce.
Yeah.
Now you've got to protect yourself. So in the 60s, India developed nukes because China developed nukes. And if you remember, in 1962, India and China went to war over their border in the north. So when India was developing nukes, and India's Pakistan's number one enemy, the only solution to nukes is you develop your own nukes. So it shows you, because it was a need, all stops were pulled out to develop that. So, a country that's so poor, a country that lacks development, it was able to develop, a very high-tech weapon system. So that shows you when the need is there, it's possible. Also, the rulers of Pakistan realized for strategic reasons, you need to develop nukes. So if you look at it, the rulers, the people, the officials, the experts were all on the same page. Today, the rulers are going in one direction, the people are going in another direction, the officials are going in another direction. You have a dysfunctional country. Which is not very different to what Europe was in history. If you look at Europe, who's very developed now, well, Europe went through the same thing. In the Dark Ages, the country, Europe was being pulled in different directions.
So it's, but can you? I just wanted to highlight you're talking about. Okay, so 40% of the population, they're farmers, they're farming. But it's a service-oriented country. I mean, and then it's exporting textiles. So discuss a bit more on that. What would you do to? I mean, you're talking about why aren't we developing?
We could take a practical example. The country next door, China, 3 decades ago, 1 billion people were in poverty. The country was so poor they used to ration bicycles and vans.
They used to what now?
right?
What?
China was so poor that they would ration bicycles and fans.
Oh my.
People couldn't afford these things. We're talking the early 1980s. And this is a country that technically got independent same time as Pakistan. World War II finished, they became independent, they kicked out the Japanese. How has China gone from having an economy smaller than Sweden and Finland in the 1980s to today where it is? Right? There's many things that led to it. The fundamental thing is China's rulers, the Chinese Communist Party, concluded communism has been a failure, and if we don't develop our country, there will be social chaos. And the leadership was united, and as a result, they underwent a process there where they developed their country, and they've gone from an economy that was $115 billion to today is $16 trillion. Yeah.
Fast and growing.
And China's done this in my lifetime. Yeah. So how has Pakistan, who got independence same time as Australia, as Singapore, as these countries, it's not happened because that's not the ruler's intentions.
No,
their intention is how can we lead this country?
All right. So, China adopted communism. Now they're a capitalist country in many ways. However, this whole thing works right now. But so Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, all of these countries, they fall apart. The so-called, the paper tigers, and then. But how is it that China is able to still swim rather than sink with the rest of the countries around it? You're saying it's the intention of the rulers? That's it. That's all it matters.
Because fundamentally, who brings all the resources together? Who takes the country forward in a direction? You need central leadership. One of the main factors that drove them to do this is when Mao passed away, they realized communism was a complete failure. And the Chinese Communist Party realized if we don't fix this, we will get overthrown. And also remember, China historically, their view is they were a global power for millennia, and then it all went wrong when the Europeans turned up. And China fell behind, and then they went through their center of humiliation. So there's a whole history China has it. So as far as China is concerned today, they're getting back to where they were.
Right.
Yeah. We, the Ummah, in fact, Islam has been in India for nearly a millennia. When the British came to India, they didn't come to a poor country. They came to a country that was 25% of the global economy. The Mughals and the Muslims before them, they came from outside to India, they made it their home and they enriched it. They didn't colonize it and rape it the way the Europeans did. That's what India was. When the British left India and created Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, what did they leave? They left a poverty-stricken region. So what this shows you is we have a very illustrious history in this region. And keep in mind, at partition, 80% of India were Hindus. Only about 20% were Muslim. So we were minority Muslims for a millennia ruling over majority non-Muslims.
So even
this is our history in this region.
Oh, in India, you were saying, of course, we were 20%.
Yeah, well, India, Pakistan, the whole region combined. So we can glue the whole of Pakistan together with Islam because that's the common factor amongst them. Right. We can glue Central Asia, Afghanistan, the Middle East, and the Far East together because Islam is the common factor. So that's one of your key starting points.
Sheikh, you mentioned something interesting there. You're talking about, I guess I'm going to go a little bit further west here, or east, regarding this whole situation of Afghanistan, where India is now also playing a very major role with Taliban. And why do you think the Taliban are willing to work hand in glove with Indians? I mean, I guess the whole diplomatic corps has been welcomed back in Kabul in some ways. There's a lot going on. I mean, with Taliban. Have Taliban become pragmatic on this situation? Are they saying Pakistan has failed? They're not going to come around. They don't have time for us. So let's go to India. Is that?
Yeah. So it's good you touched on it. I want to plug. We've just done a deep dive on the geopolity on the one-year rule of the Taliban.
I was going to hear that. But
you can read all the details there. But in summary, the Taliban have a bit of a divide at the moment. You've got those who believe what difference is there between the Taliban government today and the previous regime? You have 2 deputy prime ministers, they meet in the world. So you've got these people who believe we're compromising too much. Then you've got the Kabul government, and most of these people were the ones negotiating with America. Their view is we need to get international sympathy, we need to create a good image internationally, and we can't do what we did in the 1990s. So you've got a bit of a divide. It's like even today, I've seen the tweet and the interview where the official's saying we don't have a problem with Israel.
Yes,
so
I wanted to mention that,
but
Memory mentioned that also, that they have
look,
no problem.
you know, so you know, with the Taliban, you know, these are fighters. They've been fighting for a long time. That's what they're good at. Politics is not really their thing. Every time they've been in power, you find they become authoritarian. They start looking at the length of your bed. You know, are you praying enough? But when it comes to foreign policy, economic development, they have absolutely no idea. What the Taliban have done is they've obviously fought the invaders, and people give them credibility for that. With the Taliban, you know what you're getting, as harsh as they may be. But Taliban are now trying to play this global political game, which is something they're not very good at. So they're talking to everybody, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, all of these people they used to fight previously. Yes. So, you know, it seems to get credibility, they're going down the route of, you know, compromising and being pragmatic. Really, if you think, Afghanistan, Central Asia, Pakistan, it's one region. Historically, Islam came to the subcontinent in 2 waves. It came from the Middle East originally, but then it came through Central Asia, Afghanistan, into Pakistan, India. So really, what the Taliban should be talking about is reunifying the region. That's what they should be really talking about. But, you know, Taliban, they are a Afghan movement. Their aim isn't really beyond Afghanistan. It never has been. And, you know, obviously the country's been at war for 40 years, so you got to give them that credit. They've been busy with that. But their understanding of politics, their understanding of foreign policy, you know, that's not their thing. And that's why I'm not surprised they will make errors like this. They will do this. But keep in mind, there's a bit of a divide internally. So
yeah, it seems like
even the announcement, the announcement by the leader, Akhundzada, that they're not going to reopen secondary school for girls, after saying for months that they're going to reopen. So there was a big hurrah in the international community that, you know, you're not allowing kids to go to school, children, girls to go to school. And the Kabul government criticized Akhundzada for that. In fact, they weren't even informed. So the government in Kabul wanted to open schools, whilst the leader of the Taliban, due to some of the meetings had with the tribal leaders, he's refused that to actually happen. So there's a lot of this domestic audience the Taliban have to keep happy. Yes. Whilst at the same time, they've got an international community that they've got to show that we're not the old Taliban, we're new. So you basically, the Taliban are being pulled in different directions.
So Sheikh, let me ask you, I mean, you're obviously you're writing a strategic assessment here. I mean, you're, mashallah, obviously a strategist thinker. What is the future of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and how does this affect, you know, with I guess the relationship with India? I mean, if you can, and then with this whole mess going on, I guess I'm thinking India is going to seriously capitalize on what's happening here, seeing in Pakistan in complete chaos, and it's creating obviously very strategic links. You know, Kashmir is already kind of in India's hand. Afghanistan is now, you know, talking and in very friendly relationship with them. So what happens to Pakistan now, Sheikh? What is the future of Pakistan? What must happen in Pakistan?
So India's number one priority currently, and major change, is actually China. China has grown very powerful. India and China have been at war in the past. They still dispute over a lot of their territories. So in that sense, at least for the last decade or two, India's attention is more focused on China rather than Pakistan. However, it needs to resolve or deal with the issues with Pakistan, because India will need all its resources to deal with China. So this is why what happens about Kashmir and Pakistan is very important. So really, this is a brilliant opportunity for Pakistan, when you've got China on one side, India's got its eyes on China, and it's got its eyes on Pakistan. Literally,
Yes.
India could be pulled in different directions. India has internal issues. The south of India, the Sikh areas, they've got major internal issues. So really, Pakistan is in a strategic, advantageous position. But despite that, what are the rulers saying? They're talking about peace with India. You've got the army head talking about geoeconomics in the region. So really, rather than taking advantage of India's predicament, the rulers of Pakistan actually are giving it to India on the plate. Look, Pakistan's population will grow. More people need to be fed. More infrastructure is needed. So the rulers, if they don't deal with this now, they've got major problems coming up. And actually, you find if you look at all the Muslim countries, populations are growing, and the rulers have no plan. There's no long-term plan. How do you plan to deal with more people? Just to give you a stat, Egypt's population is gone past 100 million. In 20 years' time, it's forecast to reach 130 million. I estimate every year 1 million 15-year-olds will turn 16, who are going to be, so 1 million people every year are going to be joining the job market for jobs that don't exist. And if you're the ruler of Egypt, you need to house these people, you need to feed them, you need development. The ruler of Egypt has no plan or strategy on how he plans to do that. So that's a ticking time bomb. And that's Egypt. If you look at Algeria, Sudan, Pakistan, across the Muslim world, it's the same problem. So I actually feel things are going to come to a head. And I think you had the Arab Spring 10 years ago. The problems are far worse in these countries today than they were 10 years ago. In fact, COVID, the lockdown, was used by the rulers to clamp down on demonstrations against governments. Now 2 years have gone by, and economies are worse. Things are worse than 10 years ago. I mean, Egypt, it's just a matter of time before people take the streets again. So you find we have some consistent problems across the Muslim world in different countries. The shape and scope may be slightly different, but it comes again. The rulers have no plan to take care of the people. The people are growing in number. Their demands are growing. What do you do when the masses take to the streets? How many people are you going to kill? So I feel in
how
some
many jails
sense,
are you going to build?
this is it. So I'm actually quite confident that actually we may see some change coming forward, because the Arab world tried changing a few faces, and they've seen the underlying institutions are still there. Our situation hasn't changed. Tunisia, who the West keeps saying is the only democracy, is done a complete U-turn and go authoritarian rule.
And now Iraq might see another civil war, right? It seems very...
This is it. And even Iraq, even Iran, the clerical regime is struggling. The people have had enough of them. And I was just reading the other day, it was one of the American think tanks. They're saying the Ukraine war has had an impact on energy prices and wheat prices, which is making an economic situation in the North African countries even worse.
Yes.
And they're saying social unrest is inevitable. That's the Muslim world. In Europe,
But
Russia's already
let me
cutting
ask you
energy.
something, Sheikh. But you know, this was, I mean, subhanAllah, yani you're bringing up so many things that could be discussed here. But look, I mean, when, is it going to be about, you know, roti, kapra and makan again? Is this, I don't know if you understand. I'm sure you spoke with
Yeah.
I mean, so if, you know, Egypt was all about bread revolution and, you know, everywhere. And then look where they went. Are we, if we see a revolution again, and which I am confident we are going to see them, because I mean, everywhere I go to, situation is upside down. But do you see an ideological revolution coming, or is it going to be people again seeking shelter because they just don't have enough bread, and once they get bread, everybody goes home?
So what's that? Because our economies are dysfunctional, it's inevitable one of the catalysts will be economic related. You can't feed your family, you can't get a job. I mean, the Tunisian who burnt himself alive,
Yes.
he he was someone who was a graduate, couldn't find a job. So and the economics will always play a major role, because that's the major failure, and economics is linked to survival, your basic necessity. So I don't think that's a problem. But the Arab world rose up, and yes, they weren't completely clear. What they were clear, we wanted the ruler to go. The rulers, some of them went, and things are far worse there. So hopefully this time they realize that, it's not one person who's oppressing you. It's a whole system.
It's a whole system. People are
Yeah?
realizing that.
And interestingly, confidence in democracy in the West is rock bottom.
Yeah.
Confidence in politicians is rock bottom.
Yes.
There's a reason why Donald Trump was in power in America.
Yeah.
People had enough of orthodox politicians. They don't listen to us.
Yeah.
So this is why unorthodox people and parties are getting to power. So what you find, there's actually a global problem. In fact, non-Muslims are as much victims of the global system as much as we are as Muslims as well. The difference is we have something for the whole of mankind. Islam isn't just for the Ummah, it's for the whole of mankind. So hopefully, we hope the Ummah has realized that it's not about changing a few individuals or personnel. There's complete systems we need to uproot. And historically, we've always looked towards the West in the hope that that is what we need. And we've tried that. In fact, the West, their own people have had enough of democracy and things like that. So I feel going forward, I feel quite optimistic. Yes, it's never, change is never clean. Change is never linear. There can be ups and downs. But maybe look at it like this. Before every earthquake, there's a tremor. We had the tremor 10 years ago. The earthquake is yet to come.
Yeah, I believe that. Yes. Actually, this is something that I think keeps me going every day. As I said, whenever I go to the Muslim world, I travel across the Muslim world, and everywhere you go, I was talking to people saying, do you think the revolution in Syria is over? They said, no, man, it's just beginning. Really, when I was there, and you talk to people on the ground, and I get to visit some, very, very serious places, and you talk to doctors there. Everyone, all the educated people are telling you that, look, we learned so much from this. We realized we didn't know anything, and this time was actually where a lot of people have read, a lot of people have observed a lot of things. They realize who their friends are, who their real enemies are, the whole garbage about human rights, all of that. Everybody saw it all, So, and then COVID came, and that just exposed even the West to the realities of their own rulers. So, alhamdulillah, no, I do believe what you're saying. It just sometimes you don't want to. I just don't want us to fall in the same trap again. Is that it's all about the bread again? Khair, inshallah, akhi. Wallah, jazakallah khair for your time. I don't want to take more of your time. And jazakallah khair, Brother Adnan. You've been here. Believe me, the technicalities, but Allah will reward you for all of your time and your patience and the knowledge that you're giving. Inshallah, this will actually play a big role for the Muslim Ummah to understand what needs to be done. The point that we would like to make, though, brothers and sisters, is that the Ummah is going through a disaster after another. Whether it's Somalia, whether it's Syria, and now Pakistan, a few days could be Iraq, and Allah knows where else. The Ummah needs to understand that the solutions that we have been seeking after these disasters have created nothing but more disasters. That's what we have been seeking. Every time that we have been told that the solution is democracy, solution is capitalism, solution is IMF, solution is World Bank, solution is this Jagirdari Nizam system for Pakistan, solution is this, solution is that, and subhanallah, we end up in a situation where we are having to bury our own children. So I think it's high time that the Muslims listen to the scholars, just like Brother Adnan, who's a scholar. You listen to the activists and humanitarian workers, brothers who are working on the ground, like Brother Yasheb. And look, one common theme that we see on both of their tongues is that, look, the rulers have neglected us, have turned us down over and over and over again. So the only thing that has left is that we go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the deen of Allah azza wa jal. And as I always do, I will do it again. I know the ulama, I know the hukam have nothing to do with us, but this is a question to the ulama of this ummah, who are watching, who are seeing the situation of this ummah. They're seeing is drowned alive, and they are quiet. They're quiet. The sons of this ummah are on the streets, And this has always been the case. The sons and the daughters of the Ummah are on the streets trying to do everything possible that they can to figure out any way that they can to support and protect this Ummah and give what they have. Where are the ulama, and what role are they playing when they see this neglect? Jazakumullahu khairan, brothers and sisters. I will be back again next Friday with another show. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
يا شبابا قد أنابا وإلى الله استجابا إن من يرجو الثواب لا يبالي بالصعاب في سبيل الله نمضي نبتغي رفع اللواء فليعد للدين مجد وليعد للدين